I never thought I'd be sharing this tale, but here I am. I'm a 28-year-old man who's faced a tough road, especially when it comes to family. My mother died giving birth to me, setting a heavy tone for my relationship with my father. He never truly got over her loss and always seemed to hold me responsible for it. I have no memories of her, but relatives often shared how overjoyed she was to have me. After years of struggling to conceive, my mother finally achieved her dream of motherhood, only for it to end tragically. That knowledge makes the whole situation even more heart-wrenching. Her dream came true, but she never got to live it. Growing up, our house was like a museum dedicated to my mother. Her photos adorned every corner. Her clothes still hung in the wardrobe, and her books sat untouched on the shelves. It was as if I lived with the shadow of a woman I'd never know. Sometimes, I'd slip into their room to touch her things, hoping to feel some connection to the mother I never met. My relationship with my father, though, was a different story. He was present in body, but absent in spirit. He made sure I was fed, clothed, and got to school, but there was no warmth, no affection, no hugs, no kind words, not even a nod for my efforts. I felt like a stranger in my own home. Most days, he barely acknowledged me, and when he did, it was usually to scold me or compare me to my cousin, Liam. Liam's dad, my uncle, passed away in a car crash when Liam was 7, and my father took him under his wing. I still recall the day we got the news about my uncle. It was a gloomy Tuesday afternoon, and I was at the kitchen table doing homework when the phone rang. My father answered, his face collapsing as he listened. That was the only time I ever saw him cry. After hanging up, he sat silently at the table, staring into nothingness for what seemed like forever. Liam started spending more time at our house after that. At first, I was thrilled, thinking another kid around might liven things up and maybe even soften my dad. But I soon realized Liam's presence only worsened our dynamic. My father would say things like, "Why can't you be more like Liam?" Or "Liam would never do that." It felt like Liam was the son he truly wanted, and I was just an inconvenience. Liam was outgoing, athletic, and charismatic, qualities I didn't have. He was the center of attention, while I was quiet and loved books. My father ate it up. I tried so hard to win his approval. I studied his hobbies, earned good grades, and joined every sports team I could. But nothing was ever enough. My father saw Liam as flawless, praising him for the smallest things, while my achievements went unnoticed. When I was 12, I won a school science fair with a detailed model of the solar system that moved. I spent weeks perfecting it, certain it would finally make my dad proud. But when I got home, he was laughing with Liam about a soccer match. I shared my victory, and he just gave a curt nod before turning back to Liam. It was like I didn't exist. As we grew older, the favoritism only deepened. Liam and I were in the same grade, and people often compared us. I outperformed him academically in high school, but my father always found ways to diminish my success. Liam's focused on more than just grades. He'd say, during a parent-teacher conference, my English teacher praised an essay I wrote, saying it was one of the best she'd seen from someone my age and that I could be a writer. My father just muttered and asked if it would give me a sports scholarship. The teacher looked baffled, and I was mortified. Still, a part of me kept hoping things would change. I thought if I could find the right thing, the key to his approval, everything would be okay. I chased that impossible dream through childhood and in my teens. When college came around, the real blow hit. I'd worked hard, got accepted into a solid university, and was ready to shape my future. Money was tight, but I assumed my dad would help at least a little. I was wrong. I overheard him on the phone with Liam, promising to cover his entire college tuition. My heart sank. When I asked if he could help me too, he looked at me like I was unreasonable. "Liam needs it more. I can't afford both of you," he said. Just like that, my college dreams crumbled. I tried to make it work. I took a part-time job at a local cafe, working nights and weekends. I applied for every scholarship I could find, but it wasn't enough. The stress was crushing, balancing classes, work, studying, and sleep. Something had to give. After one semester, I had to drop out. I couldn't afford on my own, and my part-time wages barely covered the basics. Meanwhile, Liam was thriving at a prestigious university fully funded by my dad. He posted about his fancy dorm, spring break trips, and a new laptop my dad bought him for school. Each post felt like a stab to my heart. That was my breaking point. I packed my things, left home, and cut contact with both my father and Liam. It was painful, but I couldn't stay in that toxic environment, living in the shadow of my late mother and the cousin who'd taken my place in my father's heart. The last few years have been tough, to put mildly. I've worked all sorts of jobs to survive, waiting tables, construction, late-night shifts at gas stations, anything to keep a roof over my head and food on the table. It's been hard, especially seeing Liam's updates about his amazing college life and the great job he landed after graduating. But despite it all, I'm slowly carving out a life on my terms. I now work as a manager at a local bookstore. It's not the career I dreamed of, but being surrounded by books brings me peace. I'm also taking night classes at a community college, working toward the degree I've always wanted. It's a tough path, but it's mine. Along the way, I've found amazing friends who accept me for me, not for who they want me to be. They become the family I never really had. We have weekly game nights, go camping when we can, and support each other through everything. It's not perfect, but it's mine, and that's what matters. I thought I'd left the family drama behind, but life has a way of surprising you when you least expect it. Yesterday, an unfamiliar number lit up my phone. When I picked up, I was floored to hear my father's voice. It had been 3 years since our last conversation, and now he was calling, asking for help. I'm still grappling with how to process this, but one thing is clear. I'm no longer the kid chasing his approval. Update 1. A week has passed since my father's unexpected call, and I'm still sorting through the emotions it stirred. Hearing his voice dragged up a flood of memories, most of them painful. His tone was different, older, weary, almost desperate. He started with small talk, asking about my life, but it felt stiff, like he was pretending the last few years never happened. Then he got to the point. He needed money, a lot of it. I was too stunned to speak at first. This was the man who never spared a cent for my college, who always put my cousin Liam ahead of me, and now he was turning to me for help. The irony hit hard. When I found my words, I asked why he was coming to me. What about Liam, his favorite? Shouldn't he be the one bailing him out? My father went quiet, then muttered that Liam was tied up with his new job and couldn't help. I let out a bitter laugh. After years of hearing how Liam was better, how he deserved everything I didn't, now I was supposed to step in. I didn't hold back. I told him to ask Liam, since he'd always been the golden child. The line went silent for a long moment. Then he started saying something about regretting his past choices, wanting to fix things. I cut him off. It was too little, too late. I'd spent my life trying to win his love, and now that he needed me, he was playing the remorseful dad. I ended the call soon after. Hanging up left me with a storm of emotions. Part of me felt guilty for turning him away. He's still my father. But a bigger part felt free. For the first time, I stood my ground against him. I didn't give in to that old need for his approval that had controlled me for so long. The days that followed were rough. I kept replaying our talk, questioning if I'd made the right call. I thought about all the times I needed help, and he wasn't there, not just for college, but for the small moments a kid needs their dad. School events, advice about girls, learning to drive. He was absent for all of it. I remember my first heartbreak at 16. Her name was Emily, and I thought she was my world. We'd been together 6 months when she left me for a guy on the soccer team. I was crushed. I came home that day, eyes swollen from tears, and found my dad on the couch, glued to the TV. He barely glanced at me. I stood there, waiting for him to ask what was wrong, but he just grumbled that I was in the way. I went to my room and cried myself to sleep. Then there was the day I got my driver's license. Most of my friends' dads taught them to drive, but not mine. I had to beg our neighbor, Mr. Thompson, to give me lessons. When I passed the test, I rushed home to share the news. My dad was in the garage, tinkering on his car with Liam. I showed them my license. Liam gave me a quick, nice job, but my dad just nodded and went back to explaining carburetors to Liam. I don't think he ever let me touch his car. I also wondered what kind of mess my father was in to need my money. He was always so proud, almost to a fault. For him to reach out like this, it had to be serious. Despite everything, I couldn't help but worry about him a little. But then I remembered all the times I'd stressed about my own future, scraping by because I had to drop out of college. Did he care then? I had to figure things out alone, and I did. I built my own life without him. Why should I help him now? I thought back to that first year after I left home. I moved to a new city where no one knew me, starting from scratch. I took any job I could, cleaning houses by day, bartending at night. I rented a tiny studio I could barely afford. Some nights, after long shifts at the bar, my feet aching and reeking of stale beer, I'd wonder if I'd made a mistake. Maybe I should have swallowed my pride and stayed home to work things out with my dad. But then I'd remember the constant criticism, the feeling of never being enough, and I knew I'd made the right choice. As the days passed, I started to feel more confident about my decision. By saying no to his request, I was finally taking control. I wasn't the kid he could overlook or push aside anymore. I'm an adult now, making my own choices, and I don't owe him anything. Still, curiosity nagged at me. What had happened to make him reach out? Why wasn't Liam, his perfect son, stepping up? There were moments I wanted to dig deeper into what was going on with my dad and cousin. But I hesitated. Did I really want to reopen those old wounds? Was it worth stirring up all that pain and resentment? I considered calling Liam's mom, my aunt. She'd always been a bit distant, but kind enough to me. She might know what's going on. The last time I saw her was at a family gathering before I left home. She gave Liam a warm hug, gushing about his acceptance to a top college. When it was my turn to say goodbye, she offered a faint smile and a quick pat on the arm. I decided not to reach out to her. As I write this, I'm still unsure what my next step will be. Part of me wants to leave the past behind and focus on my own progress. But another part can't help but wonder what's happening with my dad and Liam. For now, I'll let time decide whether I dig deeper or move on. It's been a month since my last update, and a lot has unfolded. Despite my reluctance, my curiosity won out. I decided to investigate why my dad suddenly needed help and why Liam wasn't there for him. I started by contacting a few family friends who still talk to my dad. They were hesitant to share at first, but I slowly pieced together the story. I called Mrs. Larson first. She was my mom's closest friend and had always been kind to me growing up. She sounded surprised to hear from me, but was happy to talk. After some catching up, I brought up my dad and Liam. Mrs. Larson paused, then let out a heavy sigh before opening up. It turns out my dad had gone all in on supporting Liam, far beyond just covering his college tuition. He'd helped Liam with a down payment on a house, bought him a car, and even funded a business idea Liam wanted to pursue. To do this, my dad had taken out loans and maxed out his credit cards. He was buried in debt, all to give Liam the life he thought he deserved. Mrs. Larson shared a conversation she'd had with my dad a few years ago. He'd been boasting about Liam's achievements, saying he was destined to be a successful entrepreneur. When she asked about me, my dad had just shrugged and said he hoped I was getting by. His indifference had stunned her. Next, I contacted my old neighbor, Mr. Thompson, the one who taught me how to drive. He was always perceptive and shared some recent updates. Apparently, Liam had persuaded my dad to invest in a startup he was launching with some college buddies. It was a tech venture, though Mr. Thompson didn't know the specifics. What he did know was that my dad had remortgaged the house to fund it. The real shock? Liam's new job, which my dad had bragged about endlessly, wasn't going as planned. The startup had collapsed, and Liam was now struggling to get by. When my dad asked him for help with the growing debt, Liam reportedly said he had nothing to spare. Mr. Thompson had overheard a heated argument between them a few weeks back. Liam had shown up in a sleek new car, and my dad confronted him about the failed venture and the money he'd sunk into it. Liam shouted that it wasn't his fault the market had shifted and that he'd repay my dad when he could. Then he sped off, leaving my dad standing in the driveway, looking broken. I'll admit, part of me felt a grim sense of vindication. After years of being measured against Liam, told I'd never match up, it turned out his shine had faded. My dad had poured all his hopes and money into Liam, only to watch it all fall apart. But mostly I just felt drained, exhausted by the endless family drama, the lingering hurt, and the constant wondering about what could have been. I thought about how things might have been different if my dad had believed in me the way he did in Liam. Maybe I'd have finished college. Maybe I'd be in a different career now. But then again, maybe I wouldn't have learned the hard-earned lessons of resilience and independence. I remember the rough days after dropping out of college, surviving on instant noodles and cheap coffee while juggling multiple jobs. I thought about the late nights studying after grueling shifts, fueled by a stubborn drive to better myself, even without a degree. It was a brutal path, but it made me who I am. I debated whether to confront my dad with what I'd learned. After some reflection, I sent him a text. I told him I knew about Liam and the debt. I didn't offer help, nor did I gloat. Instead, I said I hoped he could see how his choices had impacted both of us. Hours later, he replied. His message was long, filled with apologies. He admitted he'd been unfair to me, saying his grief over my mom's death had clouded his judgment. He wrote that my mom would have been proud of the man I'd become, despite his failures as a father. He asked if we could meet to talk. I sat with that message for a long time, weighing my response. That little boy inside me, the one who craved his dad's love, wanted to say yes. I picture a moment where we'd sit down, hash it out, and somehow mend our relationship. But the adult I am now, who's fought for everything I have, knew better. I thought about all the milestones my dad missed, like my high school graduation, where I scanned the crowd for him, only to feel the ache of his absence. I remembered my first apartment, pieced together with thrift store furniture and sheer willpower, or the recent promotion I earned at the bookstore, a moment I shared only with my friends. In the end, I replied to my dad, telling him I wasn't ready to meet. I acknowledged his apology, but made it clear that words couldn't undo years of neglect and favoritism. I told him I needed time and space, and he had to respect that. I also stated firmly that I wouldn't be bailing him out financially. His choices led him here, just as mine led me to where I am. It wasn't my job to fix his mistakes. As I write this update, I feel a sense of release. Not joy exactly, but like a heavy load has been lifted. For so long, I carried the weight of trying to earn my dad's love, always wondering what was wrong with me that made him choose Liam. Now I see it was never about me. It was his own unresolved pain, his inability to handle loss. I don't know what the future holds for me and my dad, or if we'll ever have a relationship. Maybe one day, we'll have an honest conversation about everything. Maybe not. For now, I'm focusing on my own path. I'm still taking night classes, steadily working toward my degree. I'm building bonds with people who value me for who I am, not who they expect me to be. Just last week, I helped my friend Emma, not the high school Emily, move in her new place. As we unpacked boxes and set up furniture, I realized these connections, this chosen family, are what truly matter, not the approval of someone who never saw my worth. Life isn't always easy, but I'm carving my own way. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm right where I belong. I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I'm certain I'll face it on my terms, with the strength I've built through years of standing on my own. That's something my dad's favoritism can never take from me. Thank you for reading. If you enjoyed this story, please consider following for more real-life experiences like this one. Like, subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell icon. For more crazy twists and jaw-dropping Reddit stories, stay tuned to Reddit Tales Time, where every story comes with a twist you won't see coming.